Gentlemen, I have returned, and in my last Halo video I talked about the Spartan 4s and why I like them. Well, today I'm going to be talking about the ODSTs and their gigantic balls. Spartan 4s are a bit controversial. Some people like them, some people hate them, but if there's one thing everyone agrees upon, it's that they love the ODSTs, and for very good reason. The orbital drop shock troopers predate the Spartan program by over 3 centuries. In the mid-22nd century, humanity was still confined to the Sol system as they had not yet discovered slipspace travel. The United Nations would colonize the Sol system, and this brought with it a new set of challenges as well as some old ones. The United Nations had to learn how to manage colonies over interplanetary distances. Earth was also struggling with overpopulation, but on the bright side, they were now able to extract resources from Mars. So they were able to get colonies and mining sites set up on Mars and other planets and moons. Well, one of the old issues that reared its head was one day some dude decided we should give communism another try. And the United Nations just collectively went, not this shit again, and labeled that dude and his followers terrorist. Who is that dude? Not important, he's a commie. What is important is that the United Nations would send the newly formed ODSTs in, and boy, they were not playing around. They hot dropped into Mars with a mission, and that mission was to kick gum and chew ass. The UNSC would suffer some pretty nasty losses, but as I said, Earth was having an overpopulation problem, and the ODSTs have never been scared in their life, so it wasn't really too much to worry about. Fast forward to the end of the 23rd century, and humanity had rediscovered slipspace, opening up their neighboring stars for colonization. Fast forward again to the end of the 25th century, and again the colonies are getting uppity, though instead of angry commies on Mars and South America, it's insurrectionists scattered across hundreds of worlds in the outer colonies. This is a problem. So who is the UNSC going to call? That's right, the Navy, because otherwise nobody is going anywhere. The next people they would call, though, would be the Marines and their ODSTs. Let me give you a little example. The Office of Naval Intelligence would say, learn the location of an insurrectionist base. However, if you want to strike it, you have to act quickly. Spend too long mustering your forces for a proper assault, and the base will just move. Do nothing, and the base will probably still move anyway, because that's what insurrectionists do. Point is, you have to attack them right now. So, the UNSC would send a ship overhead, and a platoon of ODSTs would land right on top of their heads and go to town before the insurrectionists even knew what was happening. Oni realized just how bad the insurrection was becoming, because on some planets, you may just have an insurrectionist base or two, a few hooligans, a few troublemakers, but nothing too crazy. But then you have other planets that are in damn near open rebellion. So they established Project Orion, and would take a bunch of Marines, including ODSTs, and try to create the first generation of super soldiers. This would be the precursor for the Spartan 2 program. In the year 2525 though, a bit of a spanner would get thrown into the works when the Human Covenant War would begin. And the ODSTs would take advantage of this war of annihilation against humanity to demonstrate that they don't take shit from commies, rebels, or split-chin aliens, going on to fight in several of the major battles during the war. What sets ODSTs apart from other fighting forces is their tactics and mentality. These guys are always fighting right in the thick of it. They are literally hell jumpers. Let me give you another example. When the Covenant sets up anti-air, preventing Pelicans from approaching, but the UNSC really needs troops on the ground, the ODSTs load up into their drop pods, and pray to Christ that the onboard computer slows the pod down before it crashes full speed into the ground at Mach 7. The pods themselves are called Single-Occupant Extra-Atmospheric Independent Entry Vehicles, or SOEV, or just drop pod, which is what I'm going to call it. The pods then shoot out of whatever ship is carrying them, and the squad leader then races ahead of the other ODST pods. This is because ODSTs only respect commanders who lead from the front. Although it probably puts your balls in your throat, statistically speaking, taking a drop pod down to the surface is safer than taking a Pelican. And this is simply because a drop pod is a smaller, faster moving target than a Pelican. And if a Pelican gets shot down, well, mission's botched, boys, we'll get them next time. However, if a drop pod gets shot down, there are still 9 other drop pods. Now, I said taking a drop pod down was safer. That does not make it safe. Those are two very different things. Enemy anti-air is going to unleash everything it has onto any pod it sees, and naturally some are going to get hit. And take a guess who's in the first drop pod they usually see. That's right, the ODST commander. And even if they survive that, the commander is now the first to land. That means they're the first out, and they're the first to get blasted by enemy infantry. When considering all this, it shouldn't be too surprising to hear that the ODST commanders have a lifespan averaging anywhere from 6 to 7 minutes. That's a lie, I pulled that number out of my ass. The point is though, they usually don't live that long. The next problem that the ODSTs face, or logistical hurdle if you will, is that their pod may be able to get them from space down to the ground, but it can't get them from the ground up into space. So if the ODSTs for whatever reason can't secure a landing zone, it is going to be a very long day. Once an ODST leaves their ship, nobody is coming to save them. Unless Spartans show up, but they probably shouldn't hold their breath for that, those guys are like unicorns. And even if they did, some ODSTs would probably rather swallow a grenade than work with Spartans. Again, a bit of an exaggeration, but some ODSTs actually do seem to have a bit of a beef with Spartans. This dates back to when a 14-year-old Master Chief killed 2 ODSTs in a fight shortly after getting his augmentations. This was before he realized how strong he was and how to control it. But this beef is also there because Spartans outshine ODSTs, as one is a badass with balls of steel, and the other is a power-armored super soldier. I mean, it's like comparing apples to a grape. Speaking of armor, the ODSTs do wear better armor than your standard Marine. It has built-in comm gear, a heads-up display with a motion tracker, as well as being rated for up to 15 minutes of operation in the vacuum of space. The armor also has a bit of titanium plating in it, which works great for kinetic weapons. The issue is that the Covenant use plasma-based weapons, and plasma is notorious for melting right through titanium. So, good luck with that one. The most famous team of ODSTs, in my biased opinion, are by far Alpha 9. This is the squad that we see and are a part of in Halo 3 ODST, which takes place during the events of Halo 2. And as we saw in Halo 2, the Prophet of Regret had just gotten mollywopped in orbit over Earth, with all but his personal CAS assault carrier being destroyed. The good Lord Hood then decided that we're gonna do this the fun way, so ODSTs would be flown over Regret's carrier, and they would try to crash land their drop pods directly onto the carrier in hopes of boarding the ship and capturing the Prophet. Now, I just gotta say here, I don't know about this one, Chief. A boarding action is one of the most difficult and attrition-heavy things any military can do, and an assault carrier has tens of thousands of elites waiting to rock your shit. But, as I've said many times, ODSTs ain't never been afraid in their life. So Alpha 9 loaded up and blasted off. But while ODSTs may never be afraid, the Prophet of Regret certainly was, because he decided it was time to get the hell out of Dodge. So the carrier made a slip-space jump within New Mombasa, and resulting shockwaves scattered the ODSTs mid-drop. 6 hours later, the rookie would wake up, unable to tell his ass from his elbow, and his drop pod lodged into a building, and that is where the game begins. The other key member of Alpha 9 is its leader, Buck, who we see in Halo 5 after he joined the Spartan 4 program. Because, for all the beef they have, it turns out if you ask a ODST if they want to be a Spartan, many of them will say yes. Of course, we see ODSTs outside of Alpha 9. Technically they were even in Halo Combat Evolved, but that was more after the fact lore. In Halo 2, though, that's where we would see ODSTs in their modern form. They would fire out of an Amberclad with Chief and 1st Platoon would land on Installation 05 with orders to secure a landing zone. We also see ODSTs in Halo 3 during the Battle of the Ark, where they would again accompany Chief down to the surface, though this time it was in Pelicans instead of their famous drop pods. Why they did this? I don't know. Maybe the Arbiter wouldn't fit in a drop pod. Unfortunately, that would be the last we see of the ODSTs in the mainline Halo games, as the role they filled within the game was now filled by the new Spartan 4s. Again, that's their role within the game. In the lore, ODSTs are still around doing what they do best. One notable exception of this is Halo Wars 2, because that's an RTS game and it fits for there. Another place we'd see ODSTs is in Halo Legends The Babysitter, which is definitely one of the best episodes in Halo Legends. I hope we see more ODSTs in the future. Even with the new Spartan 4s, there are only so many Spartans, and most missions really don't warrant a Spartan. I mean, the UNSC has more colonies than Spartans depending on which time period you look at, where ODSTs are still top-tier elite soldiers, but instead of hundreds, there are tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands. I also like seeing non-super soldiers mess shit up, and of course they had a reputation for that. There's a reason the Covenant referred to them as imps. These guys have no fear, no delusions of grandeur. They know that when their pod hatch opens, there is a very good chance there will be an elite standing there about to mag dump a needler right into their chest. The ODSTs look at all that in the face and say, "Fuck it, put me in, coach." And when they're told they'll receive no support, the ODSTs say they didn't ask for support. But gentlemen, that's all I got for today. If you like the ODSTs, let me know in the comments. If you can't stand the ODSTs, also let me know in the comments, I read all of them. If you like this video, I would appreciate a like. If you dislike this video, then by all means hit the dislike button. If you want to hear more from me in the future, you can subscribe. Till next time though, fellas.